Welcome to Canucks After Dark. Here are your hosts, Parker Hallowell and Clay Emo.
Good evening, Vancouver, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks After Dark, the Christmas special, kind of, that wasn't planned, but Clay's dressed up in his Canucks suit. I've got the tree behind me, and it is our last show before Christmas, so it is a lovely time to gather and talk about our favorite hockey team that only played 2 games this week, but man, they were some fun games. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing, Clay?
I'm great, Parker. I hope you're well as well. I love the festive background. I do not have a festive background, but I have the festive shirt, as you said. And I guess it's time to be festive for me. I released a new Christmas song today, and it's my lovely daughter Kayla's 14th birthday tomorrow. So I'm in a very festive mood, and nothing wrong with starting off with a little Canucks talk with you for an hour.
Absolutely. We've got 2 hockey games to talk about this week. Only 2, but hey, that's all right. And then we do have a bunch of other topics of stuff that sort of like slowly trickled through during the week. Obviously, there's the pause that basically the entire league is on as of tomorrow. Not today, but tomorrow. Can wait a day, I guess. We've got we got 2 hirings, kind of hirings, 1 promotion, 1 hiring. We've got some candidates getting leaked out by the big media, by the folks in Hockey Night in Canada, doing a little bit of grilling of Jennifer Botterill live on the air. We had some GM candidates come out and a bunch of other stuff. So a bunch of stuff for us to talk about tonight. But other than that, anything new other than this going on? Am I missing anything, or are we ready to dive into some hockey games?
No, I think if we go chronologically, I'm sure we'll like kind of sweep up everything as we go throughout the week for sure.
Absolutely. All right, let's start top of the week. Our last show, of course, was last Monday. So Tuesday, the Vancouver Canucks have another home game, this time against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And if I say game of the year, do you think that's fair?
I think from an excitement and drama level, yes. So if that's what you like, sure. Was it the highest quality of hockey ever played? I don't know about that, but yes, from a drama and interest and just overall emotional investment, I'd say it's right up there for sure.
Yeah, and it felt like the end of the win streak, right? Columbus comes out, scores 3 goals in the first period. Jaro Halak gets the start for the Canucks, and he lets in 3 goals, and it's like, oh no, it's over. Things come tumbling down. This is classic Canucks. They put Halak in net. He lets in a couple of not great goals. And the Canucks are going to lose their win streak. There's a "We Want Demko" chant at Rogers Arena, which is so tough, so rough to hear. Could you imagine being a goalie in like your 6th start of the season or whatever it was for Halak? Hearing that, but the Canucks with a few guys out with COVID. I think they had Shen, Lamico, and Hunt all out with COVID. So it was sort of the start of their COVID issues.
Pullman left after the first period,
and then Pullman gets yanked out 5 minutes in, which was. Or like he played 5 minutes of ice time, which is crazy that's possible that he can play, that he can start the game, but he, that he can get yanked halfway through.
Yeah.
But I mean, 3-0 after the first period. I want your take. After it was 3-0, Eric Robinson gets his second of the night, who I imagine you had never heard of, because I have
never.
Gets his 4th and 5th goal of the season. What were your thoughts after the first period?
So Parker, I'll put you on the spot. You know where I am on Tuesday nights, right? What sport I'm partaking in.
That is true. You were probably bowling.
Yeah, so I was. So at the bowling alley, I see the screens, but we don't have sound on. So I don't know if they're talking about these are really good goals or really bad goals. But I do know that the third goal was not a good goal. I know that, even just from the eye test. The second Robinson goal. The other ones, a nice centering pass on the first Robinson goal. And Domi's, was that a nice one? I can't remember.
So Domi's goal was basically Quinn Hughes lost an edge on the back check, so he fell down. The Blue Jackets played to the point, and the shot was on Halak, and it squeaked through him and stopped on the goal line, basically.
Okay.
And then Domi jammed it in.
Okay, I do remember that. So you see 3-0. It doesn't look good. It's Halak. I didn't know about the "We Want Demko" chants. That's brutal. That's like one of us. having a rough answer and then everyone in the chat chanting for the other guy. Like, that's just not nice, right?
Yeah, it wasn't great. And just overall, it's one thing if the other team scores 3 goals and it's like, they're having a bad game, whatever. But the Canucks looked like their old selves. They looked lethargic was sort of the word that I picked out for it. They looked slow. They looked like they did 2 or 3 weeks ago. They were just like slow on pucks. They were the second to every battle. Shots were only 12-8, which didn't look bad on paper, but they just looked slow.
Right.
So they come out and Connor Garland in the second period gets things going. And
actually, Parker, before you get to that, can I ask you one quick question about the goaltending too? Thank you. Did you hear Boudreau's answer, his explanation, justification as why he started Halak in this game?
I did not.
He did not want to keep Halak. You know how we were guessing that it's gonna be Demko, and then Halak on the Saturday or the Sunday?
Right.
He said he didn't want Halak to come into a back-to-back cold. Imagine if they had played Demko all 3, including Toronto, if the game went on, and then put in Halak against Arizona yesterday on Sunday.
It would have been weeks.
Yeah, it would have been weeks. And if you're a tired Canucks team, are you giving Halak justice? Are you doing him justice? Are you giving him the best chance to win? So anyways, Boudreau's point was, I didn't want to bring in Halak cold off of weeks on the second of a back-to-back. So that was his reasoning.
Right. So second period, Connor Garland was mad. He was mad the team was losing. So he goes after Gavrikov. They're like, Gavrikov kind of hit him into the boards, nothing crazy. And Garland hit him back. And then they are going in a battle into the wall where Gavrikov like pins Garland's head against the boards for a good, 3 seconds. Puck's gone. So Garland's mad. He takes him to the net, and then Garland throws the gloves down. Gavrikov just stands there. Of course, classic refs. Both of you go 2 each, right? They're never gonna pick one. So kind of fired the team up. So on the 4-on-4, the Canucks get one to go. Bo Horvat goes in with Quinn Hughes on the 2-on-1, and this was leadership in this goal defined. Bo Horvat said, "I'm scoring, and we're getting back in this game," because he just ripped one into the top left corner to make it 3-1.
You know why he scored, Parker? He didn't try his little inside out move or outside in move. I don't know which one it is, but he likes to shoot. We know that, and he's got a pretty wicked release, so that was nice. Yeah. That was really good. Was the goal even set, or should the goalie
kind of? But it was a perfectly placed shot. It was far side. I don't know if he was ready for it right away, but really good shot. It's funny seeing the stat here. It's like, oh, and that was Quinn Hughes' 21st assist of the season on that goal. He's just racking up the points, and that was kind of the only thing that happened in the second period, but the Canucks were all over the Blue Jackets. They outshot them 18-5 in the second period, and it was just a ton of pressure on the entire time. And looking at this, it was like, okay. And I had mentioned this, or I had written this down in my notes after the first period. I'm like, this is going to be a real test of Boudreau, right? Are the Canucks going to come back from this really bad first period? And sure, they've probably already lost the game. The Canucks haven't come back from a 3-goal lead in 5 years, the entire Travis Green regime. They had never come back from a 3-goal lead. So we're sitting there thinking, okay, game's over. But hey, can they at least show some fight in this one? And they go out there, they dominate the second period, which they only get the 1 goal. But hey, 18-5 in the shots. And you're just thinking eventually they're going to start going. They have to eventually. And they keep that pressure going to start the third period as well. They have Horvat almost scores early, hits the crossbar when he tries to bat one in, which was pretty sick. And then we get an Elias Pettersson goal as Pettersson starts a little run here where Connor Garland fed one through to him and he missed it. And you're kind of thinking, oh, Petey, you got to get those. Those are freebies. And then they try it again and it works. So it's 3-2 as Pettersson just sort of taps one in from Garland.
And as you're watching this, Parker, because remember, I'm still bowling. I'm still watching with no sound. Even before Petey's goal, were you pretty confident, given the way that they played in the second, that they were going to at least make a game of this?
Yeah, my thought was, look, if eventually things are going to go right, eventually they have to. If they keep playing this way, worst case it's 3-2, right? And they still lose. But they are dominating the other team. And at this point, it all comes down to puck luck, whether the shots go in or not. Because if they get 18 shots in the second period and 13 in the third, eventually they're going to have to go in, right? And, Merzlikins is a good goalie, but the Canucks, made plays that forced these goals to happen, right? That Pettersson goal was a tap-in on the back post. That's nothing the goalie can do about that, right? That's the defender's job to tie that guy up, right? And then the next Canucks goal, which is all Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes just walks in and he's looking so good right now, where he walks around the net, just waits for Podkolzin to have that open lane, fires it through the defender's legs. Podkolzin settles it, waits, and then scores to make it 3-3.
But Colson, that was kind of funny because it was such a good pass. Maybe it surprised Podkolzin, or maybe he wanted to be extra sure. But it's almost like, I appreciate that you're pretty confident, pretty casual, but get it going. Get it towards the net.
To me, honestly, that showed a lot of poise when I saw that, because I'm thinking of, like, if you drop me in that scenario, or someone who's like not great and has some panicky moments, it's really easy to have that puck come to you and see the open net and just try to one time it, and like the second hits your stick, bang it in. And look, if Podkolzin had done that, it probably works because he's a good hockey player, right? But there's a lot of times where you can just, like, you can swing, you miss it, or you whiff it and it goes wide, or you fire it right through the crease, and things don't work well. And I think he had the poise to know there's no defender on me. The goaltender cannot get around. The best thing the goalie can do is reach his stick back and put it on the goal line. So I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to put it 10 inches in the air at least, and make sure it goes in. And in a 3-2 game where you're kind of struggling to get things to go in, because they've probably had 30 shots to this point. I love to see that, right? That's just like, it's just poise, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're a great point. And you are a much better hockey player than I am. I know if I was ever put in that spot on my roller hockey team, they wouldn't even bother trying passing to me, man. Like they would just take
That's
the shot.
When you just put your skate on the ice on an angle so they can just shoot it at your skate.
But great point about good alliteration on Podkolzin's poise, because I think he knew that if he tried to one-timer, it could go off the heel, it could go off the tip, it could go right into Mazurkins. I can't even say his name, but for him to stop it. And it was probably way quicker because we're watching it in slow motion because we're admiring Hughes' pass. It probably looks way slower than it was. I'm sure it was a split second, but you're right. He knew exactly what he was going to do. And that's why he's going to be a good player, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know how we've been talking a lot about how the Canucks go on these stretches where they don't get shots for long periods of time, almost every single week. This happened to Columbus. Columbus didn't get their first shot of the third period till 12 minutes in for the third period. So the Canucks had already tied the game by then. Pearson almost scores. And then the very first penalty of the game gets called, which the Canucks do nothing on, unfortunately. So it's 3-3. We have Zach Werenski going down and firing one off the post, which was scary. Heart jumped a little bit there. And then the Canucks go to the power play because Peak, who again I had never heard of, dragged down Brock Besser with just 72 seconds left. So a chance to win the game.
Yep.
And this was sweet. It was JT Miller's been quarterbacking the power play a lot more. Like it's been running through him a lot more than it normally has. It's kind of 50-50 between him and Hughes. But he just rips it through everybody onto the tape of Horvat, who just puts his stick down and basically tips it top corner. A perfect play.
Yes.
And the Canucks win it. Well, there's a couple other stuff that happened, but they make it 4-3 at the very least with 59 seconds to go.
Was Miller's pass a saucer too? Like a hard saucer?
Yes, because it went over. There was one stick that got in the lane too, and it would 100% have blocked it.
So it lands exactly where it needs to. And then Horvat, showing equal amount of skill, is able to, even I know this, even though I suck, I know that there's that one sweet spot where when you slap it at the exact time that it hits, that's the hardest you're going to get, right? That was a beautiful play by Horvat too. What a shot.
And Horvat's, you have to think about it, right? Horvat's skating in towards the net, right? Yeah. And to get your stick down, and he's a lefty, right? So to get your stick down, what you have to do is you sort of have to open your skates. You have to have one skate facing the post and one skate basically facing Miller at that point, right? So you're opening your skates, and his stick is kind of in the middle there. And all he's trying to do is just get enough leverage to get it as it hits there to get it up, which is it's split second. It has to be perfect. It's so easy for that to hit the toe of your stick or just not get enough on it. It goes wide, or, it just doesn't work out. Or, you shoot it right into the goalie's chest is also very possible, right? It's so hard to aim this shot, which is really tough, but he made it work.
So there's euphoria. We score with a minute left, but as you hinted at, we weren't done out of the woods yet because then something else happened.
Yes. We have OEL taking a penalty with 35 seconds left. And Jaro Halak makes up for the rough first period with a huge save, like 6 seconds on the clock, at like an enormous save. And then that's kind of it. Werenski missed the net with like half a second left and the game was over.
Wow. Okay. I'm willing to concede that was, definitely game of the year material for sure.
Yeah, and I think its main contender is that Rangers game from a few weeks back, which was, again, another game they were losing. They tie it up. They go win it in overtime. This one, I mean, you saw the stats after the fact where it was their first win after being down 3 in 5 years, their first regulation win after being down 3 in like 12 years, their first regulation home win after being down 3 since 1996. Which, I mean, hey, that's crazy, right? I mean, you think about it, it's like, okay, well, they've probably played 800 home games since then, and it hasn't happened once.
And Parker, and you and I know it's not because they are such a good team that they never go down 3 goals. No, it's because every time they go down 3 goals, they can't come back.
Right. Yeah. It was a big win. It was a big win for the Canucks. The captain led it. It was an awesome game, super fun, and a game that no one really expected to go the way it did.
So that makes it 5 straight for the Canucks.
That made it 5 in a row for the Vancouver Canucks. And that was Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And then Thursday, they have a road game. They have to travel
to San
Jose, a game that we didn't know if it was going to happen until basically the night before. And I think, was it Murphy? Was it Dan Murphy who tweeted it that it was like happening? And then it was like Sat Shaw who like took a picture of Dan Murphy tweeting like, looks like we got to work tomorrow or something. I thought that was really fun. So that's on the Thursday. Canucks win this one 5-2. And it's another pretty exciting game where the good players continue to be the best players, right? We talk about the Columbus game, the Canucks goals, Horvat, Pettersson, Podkolzin, Horvat. Hughes with 3 assists. Best with an assist, right? We have Miller getting points too. And we go to this next game, and once again, it's the big guys getting points. So the first goal is a classic Brock Besser goal. Tanner Pearson makes the best play he's made all season. I'll be honest. Tanner Pearson hasn't been great this year, in my opinion. And he made a really good play. He wins a battle. He sort of pokes it over to Brock Besser, a really nice pass across to Brock Besser, who's just standing at the left side face-off circle. And he just takes his wrist shot where he loads it up off the pass and just slings it over. I guess it was Aiden Hill this game. And it was 1-0 early.
Aiden Hill, the guy who could not make a save that was over his waist, basically.
Yeah, everything that was shoulder height was just in.
And he's a big guy, so maybe it's because when he goes down, it's hard for. I don't know, but he's a big guy too.
Is he big? He is. Yeah. He's only 6'6". Yeah, I guess that's
he's only a whole foot taller than. Well, that's not saying much, but yes. So you're right. That was a great play by Pearson, and he's had a couple of rough outings. But yeah, not only start that rush, then to take the puck off the defender, and then to find Besser, who had all the time in the world, and he made no mistake. So nice to see Pearson's confidence, and certainly nice to see Besser's confidence in gripping and ripping for sure.
Absolutely. And then about 4 minutes later, Canucks are on the power play. Logan Couture goes to the box for a trip. I think it was like sort of a knee on knee, but kind of mild. And this was a power play where the Canucks just passed the puck, just passing the whole time, passing. And just as everyone is typing up on Twitter, they need to shoot the puck. Eventually, it goes to Bo Horvat. A great pass again from JT Miller. That cross ice pass that sometimes works, but when it doesn't, it looks really bad. But he fires it across ice, and again, right shoulder of Aiden Hill fires it, and it's 2-0.
Yes, that Miller diagonal pass to Horvat, it is beautiful when they do connect, and it's pretty amazing when you think about it, because you're right. I just thought about you pointed out that's Horvat's offside technically. He's got to take it across his body, which is pretty impressive.
It's one of those things where you can kind of receive it as you turn, so it kind of like hits your stick as you turn. But yeah, it's not as easy as if you're a righty on that left side, because you can just take it and sort of sling it like Besser did on that first goal.
Yep.
59 seconds later, it is rough. San Jose gets one back. Unlucky play. Shot goes off of Podkolzin and then right to Timo Meier when no one really notices. And he scores to make it 2-1. And then Tanner Pearson doesn't score when he should have. There was the puck that came. I guess it literally came from behind the net, and Tanner Pearson had a wide open net because the goalie was looking the other way. It hit his skate. He missed it, and I was mad.
Yes.
But that was kind of it in the first period. Shots were 13-10 San Jose, but a pretty even period, I think. Nothing too crazy. But Canucks up 2-1.
And a lot of people were talking about interested to see how the Canucks would do or react because it was Bruce Boudreau's first road game, right? After 5 initial home games. So they're fine. The first road period was very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Second period was kind of a mess. The Canucks played really bad in the second period. Hold on. Before I say anything else, I want you to pronounce the San Jose player's name. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes. So I won't cheat. I'm just going to look at it. And I'm just going to read it real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
His name is Jaden Hagbilgiwax.
That's not at all what it is, but I respect it.
Before we go anywhere, we received a super chat. So do you want to read it out?
Oh, I didn't notice it. Lucas.
I know, because you're concentrating so hard, Parker, and keeping the show going. I get to hang out in the chat. So why don't you do the honors and read this? Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah, so Lucas with our stats here saying, in regards to the win against Columbus, Canucks' first regulation home win from a 3-goal deficit since February 13th, 1996 versus the former Winnipeg Jets, now Arizona, who also might not have a team soon. Different topic though. Rallied down from 4-1 in the second for a 5-4 victory. Thank you very much, Lucas. We appreciate it.
Lucas. Yes, not only for the info but for the donation.
Much appreciated.
25 years since
that's
we did
that's so long. It's 25 and a half. It's almost 26. I guess that's not much of a difference, really. But
so you're saying it's not Jaden Hagelbuwax?
No. What Shorty went with Holbguwax.
Okay.
Which is what I'm sort of sticking with. I have the NHL pronunciation guide, but it's from last year and he wasn't an NHL player. So I got nothing. That was his first NHL game. But he had a breakaway that Demko saved. Canucks get their first shot of the second period, 14 and a half minutes in. Now, technically they credited Brock Besser with a shot like 6 or 7 minutes in, but it was like a pass. I think he hit the side of the net, but they credit him with one anyways. I don't know if they took it away later. But their first actual shot, 14 and a half minutes in, but they still score. They still score the only goal of the period. JT Miller feeds him in the bottom corner of the faceoff circle. And once again, he just rips it under the bar, as Brock Besser does on the short side this time. And it's 3-1 Vancouver.
And I remember, Parker, we bring this up every week now. We talk about how good of a passer Miller is. And we always talk about how good he is passing from everywhere, but especially from down low. And that was a perfect example of it. And I love what you said. Well, I didn't love the fact that it happened, but you make such a good point. San Jose was completely dominating that period. So this goal was against the flow of the play, but I would argue same with the next goal we're going to talk about was also against the flow of the play because things reversed in the third period.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned Miller's passing. Miller is now once again above a point per game this season.
Wow.
32 points in 31 games, 10 goals, 22 assists. And lots of those are first assists, right? Like it seems that he's the one making the plays a lot of the time. But we go to the third period. And again, a bad period for the Canucks. They get outshot 12-5 in the second, but it's another chance for that bounce back, right? The Bruce Boudreau bounce back. Can they do it? And they do. They absolutely dominate the third period. And right as everyone's tweeting, man, the Canucks are such a third period team. Looking at you, Thomas Drance, who tweeted out once again, Canucks are dominating the third period about 15 seconds before San Jose comes the other way. And Andrew Cogliano gets his third of the season. Did you know Andrew Cogliano was still playing hockey for one?
No, but then I saw his face and realized how old he looks, and I said, that makes sense.
And this was rough for Noah Jewelson. This was a bit of a welcome to the NHL moment. He did the puck, like it got lobbed down, it bounced over his stick. Cogliano was in all alone. You'd like to see him like take the body or put his body in front of the puck even and like put your use your glove and swat it away or something. But Cogliano finds the 5-hole, another one that Demko probably wants to save. And things looking a little iffy, right? Sure, the Canucks are starting the period well, but it's already 3-2.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too hard on Jewelson, given that him and Burrows and even Breezeball before he left the game. What is it with losing Canucks defensemen halfway through a game? But these guys are all playing a bit out of their elements, a bit more than we expected them to with so many regulars out. So, but yeah, that was a rough look. And he did have a rough third period. And by the way, we should mention Lucas once again, who drops another donation. I'm so glad we passed 1,000 subscribers. This is fun. Also, a funny stat on the win in Columbus: the Blue Jackets were yet to be even exist when that record happened. They came crazy. In the year 2000, and that we're talking about a record from 1996. Thank you, Lucas, for the tidbits and for the donations. We do appreciate
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I mean, to mention Noah Jewelson again, right?
Yeah.
He's what, like the 13th defenseman on the Canucks depth chart, and he played 17 minutes that night. Right? Like, again, I'm being kind of hard on him, but he's like a mid-tier AHL defenseman who is forced to play almost 18 minutes in an NHL role. Like, that's tough. And fair enough.
But now we definitely won that Julevi trade for sure. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. So it's 3-2. San Jose kind of getting some pressure on again, kind of score effects taking place a little bit, right? San Jose dialing up the pressure. The Sharks are in trying to tie the game. And then we have Brent Burns looking like he has an open net, and Thatcher Demko makes this crazy sprawling save where he like kicks the right pad out and his legs are like this, and he like makes a huge save, and it's unbelievable. And the Canucks go right the other way. And JT Miller, they're in like 3-on-2 or something like that. And JT Miller just shoots it and he scores because Aiden Hill can't save anything, like you said, above the waist or the shoulders. A clutch goal for the Canucks, unassisted, and it's 4-2.
4-2, my favorite score prediction, as you know, but it wasn't meant to be because a very unselfish play by Petey on that empty netter.
Yep, they pull the goalie with about 75 seconds to go, and just about 10 seconds later, great play by Kyle Burrows to sort of chip it up the wall. The defender misses it. It's a 2-on-1. The defender goes to pressure Pettersson. He just slides it over, and Jason Dickinson, who has only had one goal before this year, slides it into the empty net. He was fired up. You saw he pretended to break the stick to like snap the slump, which was nice to see. Good on Jason Dickinson, who has looked so much better. In these last 6 games.
I was just gonna ask you, so you like the way he's been playing since Boudreau's been here?
He looks like an entirely different player. He looks like what we were sort of promised, but maybe even a little better. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But he looks more aggressive. He's getting scoring chances every game, which is bizarre because it's Jason Dickinson, who's supposed to be like shut down. But now he's actually getting some chances, and he's getting a few shots every game. I thought did he have a bunch of shots this game? No, he had 3 shots this game, which is still good.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah, he's been playing really well.
Wow. Would you agree? So yes, that makes it 6 straight, which is awesome. And that's the last Canucks game we can talk about. And we'll talk about the scheduling in a second. Would you agree with the sentiment or the argument that Travis Green coached to mask the deficiencies of the team, i.e. bad D, whereas Boudreau really capitalizes on the strength of our team, which is good offense?
That seems to be the case. And the thing is, it's not like this Bruce Boudreau like focusing on good offense is making the D look bad, though, which is kind of what's been surprising to me, right? I figured, look, if the Canucks are going to win games, they're going to have to win them 4-3, 5-4, 6-3, right? Like these big scores, they're going to have to outplay their defense, especially when you have Noah Jewelson playing 17 minutes. You have Kyle Burrows playing 16 minutes. You have Oliver Ekman-Larsson forced to play 26 minutes in a night because you only have 5 defensemen dressed, right? And they only allow 2 goals against, right? They allowed 36 shots, but they weren't super high danger. And of course you have Demko back there who's always going to make you look good. But yeah, it's been it definitely feels just so much different. And yeah, it feels like they have a chance to come back in these games, right? It feels like if the other team scores first, the game's not over like it has felt in the past.
Yes. And I do like how, even though it was only 2 games, they're kind of 2 very different games. One where we had to come back from a 3-goal deficit. Another one we're protecting a 2-goal lead. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Absolutely. And that's a divisional win too.
Yes.
Canucks move up the standings a little bit. Well, they are still 7th, but they are 1 point back of San Jose. San Jose has 1 game in hand. But that's fine. San Jose is going to fall off. Yeah, they are 3 points back of LA, and they are just 6 points back of a playoff spot. Edmonton, who has been on a bit of a collapse, they've won the last 2 after losing 6 straight. But they have 36 points, while the Canucks have 30. And the Canucks
isn't that crazy?
2 more games.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? After and I know you've talked about this on your streams. I've heard you talk about it, and I know I've talked about it too. as exciting as this is, it's still going to be a very formidable task to get in the playoffs. It's such a big hole, right? There's such a deep hole, but I can't believe we're talking about 6 to 8 points behind fourth spot now, which is almost unfathomable 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a totally different looking team, and I mean, you have to start thinking about, okay, which teams are you going to overtake, right? Like, how are you going to make this happen? LA and San Jose, I mean, you have to get past them because they are probably going to be the 5th and 6th or around there. Yes. So you have to leapfrog them. Then you got to get past one other team. If that's a team in the Central, so that you'd have like 5 wild cards in the Pacific, I think that's unlikely, right?
Yes.
So you're going to have to pass one of these Pacific teams. Vegas, I don't think that's going to happen. They're on a hot streak right now. They're going to get Eichel back in a month or so, maybe. That's not going to happen. Calgary and Edmonton, again, they're looking a little not great right now. Anaheim is sort of my target. You know, they've played more games than anybody. They've played 32 games, 40 points. The Canucks are 10 points back on them, but they're looking not great. And you look at things like, I like to look at, you know, the Athletics model and see where they place everyone. And on their sort of projections, if anyone's going to fall out, Anaheim looks to be the house leader there.
You know, it's interesting because I would think so too, because I do think Calgary is for real. I think Edmonton, they should be good with their 2 good players. But then I agree with you. Anaheim would seem to be the one to catch too, but they are 6-1-3 in their last 10. So granted, that's only 6-4, but they're not completely. I hear what you're saying though. They're probably the weakest of those 4 teams. I don't know. Tough to say.
Yeah, I was gonna pull up their thing here, but I don't think I can. But basically, Anaheim. So their odds of making the playoffs. They have Vegas at 97.
That's pretty good.
Calgary at 87. Edmonton at 83.
Yeah.
Now, if you think the Canucks are the next best team, or can take one of them out, then that 13% missing from Calgary and the 17% missing from Anaheim, that's where you'd take the Canucks, right? They have Anaheim at 64% to make the playoffs. And then they have LA at 19, San Jose at 16. The Canucks are at 6. They were at 1 2 weeks ago, and the Kraken are down to 2. Wow. Now, what gets a little scary is, remember, even if the Canucks get 4th in the Pacific, if the Central has their 5th place team higher than that, then that gets a little dodgy because they have the Stars at 41% right now, who are projected to get 5th in that division.
So it's going to be rough.
It's an uphill climb, but keep in mind, and Dom Lucian, whose model this is, has said, look, this heavily favors the players' performance from the last 3 seasons, and especially this season thus far, right? You think Canucks sample size, right? The Canucks played how many games this year? 30? Well, 24 of them were under the previous coach, and 6 of them were under this current coach. If you think these 6 matter more than those previous 24, which you'd have reasons for and against, right? New coach can be, you know, a big plus. And you could say, well, the new coach has been great. That's the team we're going to see the rest of the way. You could also say, well, this new coach is just like a temporary bump, and then it might flatten out over time, right? You could have arguments both ways. So he's even said, look, if there's any team that's going to defy those odds, the Canucks have as good a shot as any because they do look like an entirely different team.
Wow. Fascinating. That's really neat. I was aware of Dom's stats. I didn't know that we had climbed a whopping 5% to get to 6. So we'd have to win another 5 or 6 in a row just to get in double-digit playoff percentage, correct?
I think if they won 2 more, they'd probably be there.
Okay.
But like if they'd beat Toronto, I think they'd be there. Just because it's such a high like ELO based opponent. Because Toronto is, I think, their number 1 or their number 2 ranked team by strength behind Colorado.
What's ELO? Sounds like a rapper or something.
ELO's like a way to rank teams. It's like a chess sort of thing. Typically, but it's basically it's like a ranking system.
If you said emo, then I know you're talking about me, but it's ELO.
Yes.
Okay.
No, much different. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it for the last couple of games and where the Canucks are at. And I mean, I guess we should talk about the 2 games that didn't happen this week that we expected to, and the other 2 games that, I mean, we're supposed to have a game Saturday and Sunday, which were going to be fun. Toronto, that was a big game. Arizona might have been a free win. I'm not going to go that far, but then they were supposed to have a game tomorrow night and a game Thursday night, but looks like neither of those are happening this week.
You're right. A story of two types of cancellations. The Saturday, Sunday were canceled basically in one fell swoop. And we knew Toronto had a lot, 5 or 6 players. We knew Vancouver had their 5 or 6 players.
Yeah.
And again, I was bowling. So I bowl only twice a week, Tuesday night and Saturday morning, and both times hockey related. Columbus game on Tuesday night. And then Saturday I was bowling, and I was getting ready to make arrangements to go to the game. My first Toronto game in 12 years as a season ticket member, because we always sell them. And then Mike and I were going to go. And sure enough, by, I guess, 11 or 11:30, we knew that there was no game, which is fine. We understood. I think you are good at this, Parker. I know I tried to do this. Perspective. Yes, sure, we want to go to games. Yes, we want to cheer on this team that's on a 6-game win streak, but I think there's other bigger problems in the world right now. So without getting too into that, and then Sunday was canceled as well. Sorry, not canceled, postponed, of course. So
Right.
Those two first, and then as part of their memo yesterday, all Canada-US opponent yesterday, those games were postponed. So that took out Tuesday San Jose, Thursday Anaheim, and then today they announced that all games, regardless of Canada, US, Canada, or US, everything postponed through Christmas now.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate the way it worked Saturday, because you heard a lot of stories of people like coming from the island or coming from other places around, and mostly Maple Leafs fans, right? If you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan who lives on the island, right, that's the one game a year you come out for, right? You get a hotel for a couple nights, you come down, and the fact that it didn't get canceled till, what was it, like 10 a.m. 6 hours before game time, right? You take the 9 a.m. ferry. And you're kind of stuck out here. Now, I heard that BC Ferries like sort of comped the way back for them, which was nice. But
good on them. Good on them.
But yeah, I mean, it's unlucky. And so that game, and then the Sunday against Arizona, and this, this was supposed to be the big potential for momentum, right? The Canucks take on Toronto. If they can overcome that game, well, then you got Arizona, San Jose, and Anaheim all before the Christmas break. Then after the Christmas break, you have Seattle, Anaheim again, LA, Seattle, the Islanders who are bad, the Senators who are bad. Like, you have so many. There was a real potential for a 15 big straight. Maybe, probably not. But I mean, let's, the Canucks, maybe if the Canucks can have a little like 6-2 run here, which wouldn't be that out of the question looking at some of the teams they were against. I mean, they do that, and suddenly they're 3 or 4 games above 500,
which is crazy. Wow.
And I mean, now you're talking about a team that's a couple points out, right? Like, it's and it's. I mean, look, that Toronto game gets pushed back. Now, maybe if we're just focused on standings, maybe that's a good thing, right? Especially if let's say the Canucks come back after Christmas, which is what they're shooting for, which would be the 27th against Seattle, right?
Yes.
Well, then you have, like I said, Seattle, Anaheim, LA, Seattle, New York, Ottawa. All beatable teams, right? That's what, 6 games?
You got it.
Let's say the Canucks go, 4-1-1, right?
Yep.
And look, that's optimistic. And I've been very, like, whenever I do these projections, I usually go on the negative side because it's sort of emotionally hedging my bets.
It's the only time I've been right all season, the last 2 weeks.
but I mean, look, Seattle's bad, right? Anaheim's struggling. John Gibson's not playing the way that John Gibson has played in the past. LA's pretty middling. Seattle again. The Islanders have had their worst season in a while. Ottawa's not good, right? The Canucks have some really hard opponents a couple weeks from now. They go on that like Metro tour where that Metropolitan Division is just a bunch of tough teams. But this was a chance, or this stretch is a real chance to have 6 solid potential wins. And again, like I said, if you go 4-1-1, well, then what? You're 2 games above 500, and you're right back in the mix come the new year.
Yes, and that's a really good way of putting it, and taking the season in chunks of games or week by week, as Boudreau said. And even if the games weren't canceled, we could have, not easily, but we could have come out of this weekend. We could have been talking about a team that was 1 game over 500 with victories over Toronto and Arizona. So it's, it just shows how much progress they've made, how much ground they've made up in 2 short weeks. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even if they had gone 1-1, let's say they lost to Toronto and beat Arizona, then they'd still be in a good spot, right? I mean, they'd still be in a totally in a great place to be. So, I mean, these 6 games coming up, assuming they all happen, which hopefully they do, all winnable games. But then, then they have that stretch, right? Starting on the 11th of January, Florida, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Washington, then Nashville, who's
Yeah.
second in the Central, uh, and then Florida, and then St. Louis, who is third in the Central, and then the Oilers. So
Wow.
they have basically they have 6 games that are fairly winnable, and they
Yeah.
have like 7 games that are tough. So what you're hoping for is win as many of these next 6 as you can and try to build up a little bit of a buffer. Because then if you go
Sure.
into the next 6 and you go 2-4,
Yeah.
then maybe you're still sort of in it, right? But if you falter during these 6 and then the next 6, you have tougher opponents, then you start to fall behind that 8 ball again. And this is a real good chance for them to hopefully build up some wins, keep that momentum going, and have a bit of a cushion going through the Metro.
And obviously, when the schedule makers make the schedule, they don't know who's going to be good and who's going to be bad, and they're not sitting there saying, "Oh, let's give the Canucks some softies over Christmas," but then we're going to rock them and jet. No, of course
Right.
not. But it's just kind of funny how it works out that way. And sure enough, I'm sure they're not going to go. Oh, I hope they go really well over the next 6, and then maybe they surprise us over that 8 as well. By the way, Lucas, very much in the generous festive spirit, his third donation of the show says, don't forget these 4 games are being kicked over to February when the Olympic break gets the axe. Yes, I think we're going to be talking about that in a couple minutes. Lucas, thank you for the heads up. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and hopefully for the Canucks it's just those 2, right? Because then they still get a little bit of an Olympic break, which would be nice. And there's a lot of conflict, like arenas are booked and stuff. And
Yeah.
I've heard that there's like insurance that goes into that, where if there's shows, they can get canceled and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an exciting couple of weeks here, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, look, next Monday we'll be doing a show that night, as we do every Monday, and hopefully it could be after a win against Seattle, their first game in 11 days. At that point, it would be that would be a nice little Christmas present.
And yeah, I'm supposed to go to that game, Parker. I was going to talk to you about this afterwards, but you might have to just start the first 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll do the same thing. Get to my office and jump
the
in.
10-15 start could be
10-15
that worked really well last time, so maybe we'll pull that again.
Yes, I pulled in at 10:14, and you were calm, cool, and collected. Yeah, you're good.
All right, we got about 20 minutes left, so let's go over some other news that did happen this week. First one that after a pretty odd week among the front office, with Chris Gear being named AGM or partially interim AGM or whatever, and then getting fired like a couple days later, and people wondering, well, what does this mean for Stan Smeal, who sort of stood up in that press conference and sort of ran the show with Francesco there. But he gets a little promotion. He goes from senior advisor to vice president of hockey operations.
Yeah. So good for him, especially a lot of people were really impressed, or I felt sorry, or maybe a combination of both. They were happy that he was kind of the steady one throughout all this tumultuous week and a half, and a lot of good changes, obviously, with Boudreau and Rutherford. But Smeal was the one that I think a lot of people thought either it wasn't communicated well to him or about him what his role was. So it's great to see him assisting Rutherford. Likely, I never see him as the head GM. I never see him as the head president, but I think he's very good in a complementary role. And I think this is going to be a good role for him as well.
And he really impressed at that press conference. And like, you just look at like Twitter and everything, and people were excited about Stan Smeal. Like, man, this guy's talking. He's like speaking truth. With Francesco next to him, he's stealing questions from Francesco. He's like, I got this, and he's like saying good things. So I think lots of people enjoyed that. And I mean, look, he sort of bleeds blue and green. Like he's a part of this team forever, and he always seems to want to be.
So when they named him as vice president, then they kept Ryan Johnson as Abbotsford GM, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't think they announced anything around that.
Right, and the Sedins still special advisors to the GM, who we don't have yet, which is fine.
To nobody right now. They are on their own. They're
advising themselves.
They're just going. And then they also made another hire this week, sort of a guy who I guess Rutherford was familiar with. They hired Derek Clancy. And the only thing, again, I mentioned this before the show, the only thing I get from Derek Clancy is thinking of Clancy Wiggum from The Simpsons, Chief Wiggum.
I don't watch The Simpsons, but I do know who that is.
Yeah. Yes. But he was a scout for the Flames up to now. So the Canucks countering the Flames stealing all of our players. We go and steal their scout, which is great. But he also, he was like the director of player personnel and director of pro scouting with Pittsburgh under Jim Rutherford. So he sort of left when Rutherford left. He joined the Flames, and now he is back underneath Jim Rutherford.
Good. It makes sense that Rutherford will surround himself at least with some people that he's comfortable with. And remember, he did say in his very first presser that he was already close to hiring not a general manager, but at least an assistant general manager. So maybe Clancy was the one he was talking about. And it's funny, Parker, when you hear Clancy, you think of the guy from The Simpsons. I know I was talking about, I know there's a trophy, but I couldn't remember what it's for. And I see it now, the King Clancy Sports Award giving to the NHL player who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice and who has made a significant humanitarian contribution to his community.
Yeah,
so,
and the Sedins won that a couple of years ago in their last season.
So Derek Clancy must be great then.
Probably. It's spelled differently. There's an E in his name.
Oh, true.
But I'm sure it's named after him.
Love it.
So that's good. All right. Do you want to go the assistant route or the GM route?
Let's work our way up. Let's go assistants, then GM.
All right. So the Canucks obviously didn't name any AGM candidates. That'd be crazy if they just said, hey, we're looking at these people. But there were some reports coming out. The big name floating around is Jennifer Botterill.
Yeah.
Who is on the Hockey Night in Canada panel, and they kind of questioned her about it, which was kind of uncomfortable.
Well, I didn't see that. Oh. How'd she handle it?
She was kind of like, I don't really want to, or what. Like she didn't do much. She kind of danced around it a little bit. But Jennifer Botterill, Olympic gold medalist, 3-time for Team Canada, and then obviously all the women's championships. Very, very decorated playing career.
Yep.
She had like a Harvard degree. She did a bunch of stuff. I saw lots of sort of negativity being like, oh, you just hired the most qualified person. It doesn't have to be a woman. It's like, well, maybe, hey, we've been ignoring all the women for, however many years. Maybe we're missing a few really good candidates by singling out half of the population. So I think she has a psychology degree from Harvard, which I'm sure you don't get that easily. That doesn't sound like a very easy degree to get, and obviously really well respected on Hockey Night in Canada. And it looks like she's sort of the front runner based on what we've heard so far.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how. I wasn't sold on her in Hockey Night when I first saw her, but I will admit, I'm not just saying this now, that she definitely grew on me, and I really respect her, the way she knows the game. She's able to articulate herself and certain things points about the game. And it would be ironic if it's her as opposed to her brother, Jason Botterill, who everyone's scared for the Canucks to hire.
Yeah, let's not hire that guy. I think I'd much rather her be in the organization than the guy who gave Skinner that contract, because that scares me.
Contract.
That scares me a little bit.
So there's Jen Botterill. Who else is in the mix?
Another one I've heard is Angelo Regario, who I didn't know all that much about, but she also was on the U.S. side, I think, on the Olympic team. Also won a gold medal. Just not as many because Canada's better. But gold in 98, silver in 2002 and 2010, and bronze in turn in 2006. 4 world championship gold medals. Also in the Hockey Hall of Fame, just like Jennifer Botterill. I haven't heard too much on her. I don't know if she's I don't know what she's currently doing. I haven't heard her name around too much. And her Wikipedia page is not great at telling you what people are currently doing, just what they did in the past. But she was called top defenseman in the world in 2003 by the Globe and Mail. So she's a very good she was a very good hockey player at the very least.
Okay, that's good. I admit I have nothing to add to what you just said.
I haven't done much research on AGM candidates because if you look at who our last AGM was, John Weisbrod. What did he do day to day? Clay, can you lay that out for me?
Same answer as the previous. Yes.
Yeah.
Although he did walk up and shook the hands of our newly drafted players. That's what he did.
Yes, and apparently he ran like an NBA organization into the ground before coming here.
Yes.
Thanks, John. All right, GM candidates, the bigger ones, obviously, because they're the big decision makers. Report today from Rick Dollywall on Donnie and Dolly. I know you keep up pretty often with them, and
Yeah.
I think I watched about 30 minutes of their show today.
Hmm.
He has been hearing the name Chris MacFarland
Fine
floated
with me.
around a little bit, and that has been sort of the consensus person, at least online, right? And
Yeah.
what do we know? Not much, right?
Not much.
We get all of our information from the internet typically, and TV and radio. Chris MacFarland, obviously, for those of you who haven't heard of who he is the current assistant general manager under Joe Sakic in Colorado. Basically, I mean, he joined the team in 2015, 2016. They had that historically bad year. Remember Colorado like 5 years ago, how they're the worst team in history?
Oh, they're
They had
so
like
bad.
what do they have, like 48
40.
points?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that actually what it was?
It
I
was
don't
very
have it up
bad.
here. Yeah.
I think it was
Let's see.
Bednar's first year too, and
They
I
won 22 games.
Yeah.
They had 56 losses, 4 OTLs. They scored only 166 goals, 2 goals per game, while allowing 278, 48 points. And the following year they had 95.
they double.
They literally doubled their points, and then now they are considered to be potentially the best team in hockey, right? They get 92 points in the shortened season that goes 70 games. They get 82 last year in a 56 game season, knocked out in the second round. But now, I mean, you look at them right now, and once again, they had a slow start to the season, but they're 16-8-2, and they're right back in it. So he has been credited with sort of being Joe Sakic's right-hand man, and clearly whatever they are doing is working. More background on him. He was in the Columbus organization basically for the 15 years before that. He was their director of hockey ops for about 7 years, then their AGM for about 8 years, managed their AHL team for a couple of years in there as well. So he has the experience, right? He's been around the NHL for 22 years, basically at this point. And he seems to be very well respected, very highly regarded. The thing is, can you pull him out of Colorado?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I guess generally you'd hope that presidents and general managers of other teams, if the Canucks ask for permission to speak to certain guys who are AGMs, generally, I think the rule of thumb is that you're not supposed to stand in the way of a promotion. It'll be different if we were trying to take them for the same role here, right? But yes, Chris MacFarland, you and I have talked about him on this show before. We might not know a lot about him, but we do know that him and Joe Sakic are building something pretty darn good in Colorado for sure.
Right. And I think that's the main name we've heard recently. Have you heard any other names get
popped
up?
Two I want to bring up. One of them that no one's brought up, but I keep talking about them, is this guy named Eric Tulsky. He's the assistant general manager in Carolina, very analytics based. But the one I think Hell of a Shot mentioned him a few minutes ago, and I've heard a bit more today, is Patrick Alvin. It's spelled like Alvin, but it's Alvin because it's like Sedin. He's from Sweden. Is
he the guy on Twitter, or is that a different guy?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's one guy on Twitter who gets angry and defends all the Swedish players. Is that him?
Oh, maybe. So he is the AGM in another AGM in Pittsburgh right now, working with Ron Hextall. So could it be another Pittsburgh Penguin front office guy coming over? We'll see. So yeah, Patrick Alvin.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the same guy.
Okay.
Thank goodness, because that guy bothers me.
Who is that other guy? Did you figure it out?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's definitely Patrick something. I thought it would get suggested to me.
Okay.
But it hasn't. I mean, obviously Chris MacFarland seems like, look, first time GMs, you can't say they're a slam dunk.
Yeah.
But with how highly regarded that he is, and same with, like you mentioned, Eric Tulsky, who sort of had this meteoric rise, right? He went from being an analyst for the Hurricanes for 3 years, starting in 2014, and then he became their director of analytics and their vice president of hockey management for a couple of years. And then the last year and this year, he's been their AGM. So he's basically shot up from an analyst, and then 5 years later, he's their AGM. And everyone says he's basically this extremely smart analytics guy who I don't know. He just dissects everything really well, and apparently he knows what he's doing. It would be a crazy move to go from basically analyst in 2016-17 to a general manager 5 years later. That is a big jump, but with how well regarded he seemingly is in all of these circles, You got to wonder if the thought process is, well, should we just grab him before anyone else can, right? Sure, maybe he's not totally ready for the job, but do we want him to just be in our organization so that in 2 years, once he's got that management experience, he's like one of the best in the league? Do you sort of try to buy low ahead of time instead of him joining another team, maybe a rival, and then he's one of the best GMs in the league 2 years from now, and then you're competing with that forever?
Yep, that's a good point. It's a strategy often used in hockey pools or football pools where you might not need the guy, but you just take him so someone else can't get him. I'm not saying that this is the case here, but there is some element of that for sure. If you see potential in him, is scoop him up now. Just like, I often think if the Philly and Vancouver firings were reversed and Vigneault went first, would Boudreau be in Philadelphia right now? I often think about that actually.
Yeah. And I mean, we heard that might be why the Canucks made the move when they did, right?
Yeah.
There was rumors that Aquilini heard that other teams were sort of calling him and asking, so they just put an offer that day. Like they're like, all right, well, let's get him now while we can. And I don't know. I think Philadelphia was sort of the rumor there. Don't know if that's true, but that's one thing that I saw online at the very least.
Okay, so imagine a team of Clancy with Botterill and then one of MacFarland or Alvin. That's not bad.
Or Tulski.
But yep, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah, I think you're feeling pretty good if it's especially for me if it's a Tulski or MacFarland.
Yeah.
Especially MacFarland though, just a little bit more cachet and experience.
Sure.
Last topic or last two topics I want to quickly touch on.
Sure.
Do we have the black skate coming back? We saw this morning
Yeah.
at practice. Thomas Drance tweets out first saying it looks like Demko's in some sweet retro gear. He tweets out the Kirk McLean helmet. And then finally we get some good reporting. Harm Dial goes down, gets to ice level, gets the photo of him with the black CCM pads. You see they got like the normal CCM logo on top, like the new one, but the retro CCM logo on the front. He's got like the brown looking glove and blocker. They got to be doing something retro. And you got to wonder, is this just a big PR push from Aquilini trying to be like, I was right? Because I mean, he's been big on Twitter lately. Now that the team's doing well, he's all over Twitter. I wonder if he's just trying to get as much public support as he can right now.
So Parker, I followed the story today. Did it only pick up legs because Demko was wearing this mask and these pads?
Yeah, so he was wearing the mask, the pads, the glove, and the blocker. Basically breaking in new equipment, right? Like getting ready to play it in games. Because you're not gonna use this equipment for the first time in a game, right? You're gonna get it worn in a little bit. Lucas with another super chat, $5 saying I would not rule it out. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, you heard Donnie and Dolly again talking about it today, and they were wondering, well, what if you went a different route? Right? What if we were running the black V, right? Or the white skate, or like change it up a little bit, which I love, right? Mix it up a little bit. The Canucks have been leaning on that reverse, or not the reverse retro, but the sort of throwback retro, like the
stick and rink,
but kind of altered. They've worn that a few times last year and this year. So, if there's potential to make that the permanent third, I do like the stick and rink one that they're currently using. It's got no white on it, and it's just like the blue and green. Although I never really noticed they're wearing it until like there's a highlight, and I like, oh yeah, they were wearing those that game because they look exactly the same, like the exact same colors. But I think that would be exciting.
Yes, I'm a big fan of the black skate, not only because that's when I was growing up following the team. Of course, we know that it was slightly altered, but I mean, modernized. But yeah, I love it. And we knew that Horvat said how much he loves it, and the players look really sharp in it. So some of the best pictures are Horvat or PD or Demko in them. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the new year for sure. But it sounds like a lot of people are talking about it. And where there's smoke, often with this team, there is fire.
Absolutely. All right. Good chance for you guys to get some questions in. Again, we're at like 11 o'clock, but we'll take a couple extra minutes. We'll take your questions, wrap everything up nicely as we normally do. So that'll be a good time. Clay, anything else you want to talk about while we're here and waiting?
Well, I'm just curious to see what happens. I guess the one thing that we can quickly touch on, when the NHL and NHLPA agreed to potentially consider the Olympics, part of their out clause or their clause was those 3 weeks, if we need them to make up games because of COVID, then we will use those 3 weeks potentially to make up games. So
Right.
if they don't want to go to Olympics because of not only political stuff, but more importantly, the safety, the threat of 3 to 5 weeks quarantine that we talked about last week, then it makes sense. Now with over 40 games postponed, it makes sense to try and do those games, make those games up in that 3 week period. I think we're going to hear something pretty quick, Parker, but that seems to be the natural way to go as more and more players kind of express hesitation about going over to Beijing.
Right. And you had about a week and a half ago, you had Bill
Yeah.
Daly even saying like, look, it's up to the players at this point. But we had a lot of talk yesterday. I think Spit and Chicklets tweeted out that they had a source that said that's not going to happen. Elliot Friedman said something similar. Emily Kaplan of ESPN said something like, yeah, it's not looking good. And I think we're at that point where it's just not going to happen. It's sad, right? I mean, we're not going to see. It looks like we're never going to see McDavid and Crosby together on Team Canada, right? Like the power dynamic there.
Yeah.
I got to imagine Ovechkin's still there in 4 years, though. the way he keeps
gray hair.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, even if Ovechkin plays like 3 more years in the NHL and then goes back to Russia, I mean, he's still playing in the Olympics if he's 45, because he just seems to love the game so much. But yeah, it's sad, right? We're not going to get this look at Elias Pettersson in potentially the top 6 of the Swedish lineup. Quinn Hughes playing with like Adam Fox on the USD, right? Like that's so dynamic and so good. And it's crazy how quickly it just sort of all fell apart.
Yeah, Elliot Friedman did say on Donnie Dolly that maybe there's an outside chance the whole Olympics, not just the hockey, of course, the whole Olympics get bumped by a year.
It seems almost too late for that, right? I mean, we had that with Tokyo, but I guess that happened probably 3 months out, which isn't that. I mean, it's still 2 months out here almost.
Yeah,
I guess only a month and a half really though, till the start.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would be fine with that because we just had the Summer Olympics. Like that was so recent. But stuff like that's so hard on the athletes, right? Like the ones who specialize in like hockey, like they just do it extra, right? But the speed skaters and all these people who train so hard for this one specific event and one specific year, and they're going so hard right now, and then to have to take another year and be like, okay, now I have to do this hard training again next year or over the next 12 months or whatever. That's so hard on just the body and the mental to be an Olympian and have to, instead of being on a 4-year cycle, make it a 5-year cycle, especially when they're this close. It seems unlikely.
Excellent point. Spoken like a true athlete and true donations tonight. Lucas, a 5th donation. Parker, we should be happy to see the NHLers not going to Beijing. Political. Yeah, we're going to hear a lot more about that. We probably shouldn't get into it with 2 minutes left in the show, but yes, Lucas, that's a very fair statement for sure.
And I mean, I'm thinking just purely health wise. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, you also, and I'm thinking for hockey, right? For hockey, these players, they all do it for a living and the Olympics are sort of a bonus. Yeah. But you think of all these athletes who work literally their entire lives for like one shot like this, right? Yeah. And even with like political stuff aside, right? They have to make the decision. They're like, hey, is this thing that I've trained my entire life for? Do I not go A, to make a political stand, or B, because I'm worried about having to be stuck there in quarantine, right? That's so hard of a decision to put on these people who've trained their whole lives for these things. So either way, it's just an unfortunate scenario all around.
We'll see. We're gonna find out pretty quick, I think.
Last thing I wanted. Okay, we got one question here that I want to use as the last topic.
Okay.
From Hell of a Shot. Do you think Vancouver could win a bid for Vancouver 2030? There was some. I remember I saved an article about this earlier this week because I saw it and then I completely forgot about it. But it sounds like they are going to be putting a bid together, potentially.
And working with some of our First Nations people. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the Vancouver and the First Nations announced a committee to explore a possible 2030 Olympic bid. Now, there's a lot of politics around this, around like, like all the money involved and all this stuff. Look, I'm selfish. Vancouver 2010, I was 12. I didn't get to really enjoy it. I went to a sledge hockey game, which was great. I went to one of the like nightly ceremonies, which was fun. I saw the torch run through Langley at one point. That was great.
You mean someone carrying the torch? Like,
Yeah,
not
someone
the torch
carrying the
running?
torch.
Yeah, okay.
Right. The torch did not have legs.
Well, you were 12. You never know.
but I just like the idea of having just sort of the big party around it. Sure, it's expensive, and there's a bunch of reasons not to do it, but it would be so much fun. It would be a very fun 2.5 weeks to have another gold medal game here for hockey and all these other events. I mean, I'd be taking 2 weeks off work. I'd be at every event I could go to because that would just be a really fun event.
I don't know if I'm more excited that we could host the Olympics twice in 20 years, or if I'm more sad that another reminder that I am 24 years older than you.
Yeah, well, you'll still have fun. You'll still go to a couple hockey games.
Yeah, exactly. If I can use my cane to get up the steps, I guess, into my
They got ramps. They got ramps built for that. You're good.
That's awesome, man. That's 12 years old. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it would just be a lot of fun. So that's I'm of the boat of go for it. We have most of the facilities already, right?
Yep.
We got an arena, we got the oval, we've got the mountains. Well, we might not have snow up there in 10 years, who knows? But they made fake snow 10 years ago anyways, right? For 2010,
exactly.
they didn't actually have any snow that year. So
first couple days for sure they had fake snow.
I think it would be a lot of fun.
All right, well we'll back the bid then. You and me. Canucks After Dark will back the bid.
Yes, we'll be official sponsors. By then, we'll be huge in 9 years. Or we'll be not doing this. We'll see. Anyways, Clay, anything else any other topics you want to talk about here?
No, well, I think respectful of the time, we want to thank everyone that was here today. Lucas, thank you for the donations and the thoughtful contributions. And to everyone, we're sorry we didn't get to your questions today, but there are a lot of good topics, even though the Canucks only played twice. A lot of things going on still. So
I'll give you guys some behind the scenes, and we sort of do this subconsciously. We see that there's not a lot to talk about sometimes like this, where there's only 2 games and a lot of stuff gets postponed. So we sort of subconsciously talk more about the things that we do have, and then somehow it makes us go long and we run out of time because we're terrible at time management. But hey, we're getting better as we go.
Yeah, for sure. And to everyone watching, I know Parker, you'll do the official sign up, but we appreciate the support. We've grown a lot, especially in the past month or so, as the Canucks have played better, or if the Canucks were tire fire. Regardless, we appreciate you coming to us as one of your places to get info in the chat, Canucks and build community. And we wish all of you a very safe and Merry Christmas for sure.
Absolutely. And this is our second to last show of the year. Obviously. So happy holidays to everyone. It'll be after Christmas by the time we do this again. The 27th, next week's show, like Clay mentioned, he's going to be at the game. If there is a game, then we will do the show at 10:15 p.m., which is sort of our standard. And I think that's the last Monday game the Canucks have on the schedule. We'll see if some of these postponements change that a little bit. But I'll have my post game after the game, and then we'll come here and it'll be a fun time. Awesome. Other than that, for this week, I don't think you're gonna see a ton from us because it's the holiday season, so we're gonna take some time and hang out with our families and have a nice little holiday season, especially since the Canucks aren't playing, so there's not a lot to talk about. If there's a GM hiring, you'll hear from both of us, I'm sure. They're gonna hire someone on Christmas Eve, and we're gonna have to say, see you, family. We got to talk hockey.
Turn on the computer.
Hopefully they wait till if they do it like tomorrow or after Christmas, we're good. Otherwise, we'll see you all in about a week or so when the Canucks take on the Seattle Kraken. Clay, any parting words? Anything else you want to say here?
Yeah, I just love what you said about the peek behind the curtain is we get on here 10 minutes before. We say, okay, we'll hopefully we'll have enough to fill a show tonight, and if not, we can go to the people. And inevitably it's the other way. We actually go to the people less on a night where we think we have less to talk about. So just talks about the passion around the team, the passion you and I have, and we appreciate the passion of everyone in here. So once again, thanks everyone, and have a really good week, and make sure that you spend that time with your loved ones as well. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow with some new announcements? We might be forced to be inside the whole time anyways.
Who knows? All right.
Who knows?
Thank you guys very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.